to 108 around the corner from Lock, huh? Checking up on my youth cause I'm responsible for my flock, huh? Out here chasing that paper, getting that fetty, stacking that guap, huh? Right now keep cranking that music and filming cause we in the studio high, huh?
My initial observation of the Nipsey effect, right? Let's call it that. It's almost likened to, you know, the ripple effect. You feel me? So the effect is always going to be felt strongest where it's localized at. You dig what I'm saying? Because we're a global community now that exists online or social media, it's no longer, you know, we can't even say where local is. So it impacted his direct community, right? But because of social media, it reverberated globally, right? Because where we were all localized at in our particular locations, we felt it. And then people around us felt it. And then the next day when I woke up, right, which was April 1st, and I just saw it just cascading into something that was reverberating and it was hitting the quote unquote real ones, you know what I'm saying? The women, for obvious reasons, they were feeling what they were feeling, and then the brothers, for obvious reasons, were feeling what they were feeling. And then it cascaded where people who were not mindful of why the people that they look up to were feeling this way, they started getting the information. So he impacted the impactful, right? And the people who are impactful always have, you know, the masses underneath them that are looking up to them, you know what I'm saying, or tapping into, right? People come to social media to find out, shit, what are we running with this week? How should I feel? They're coming for their instructions and their dictates. What are we mad about this week? How should we feel? What are we feeling about? You know, who's getting canceled? I mean, people wake up and look on their social media so they could get in line and, you know, follow that particular thing. But I think that genuinely the brother resonated and he hit a note in people's hearts, because the people who are doing the research, right, online now, they're looking at his interviews and they're saying, whoa, this is not your typical gangbanger, right? So now his value goes up in death, right? After his life, his value goes up because now people are able to see him, right? They're able to see him, unfortunately, in death. While the man was alive, they weren't able to see him for whatever reason. I don't know if it was too many rappers running around with face tats. I don't know if it was too many rappers running around with braids. I don't know what it was, but for whatever reason, the masses were not able to see this individual at the time of his life, but rather he became that much more visible in death. And these are the reasons why he was able to, in symbolism, for the most part, he was able in symbolism to find some sort of similarity with the story of Jesus, if you will, or the Christ. Now let's walk this, right? Because this is something that has people in their feelings. The man comes, right, into a knowledge of himself, and he's able to transcend what we typically say is the two-end route to that lifestyle, either the grave or jail for life. And we're talking about, you know, the lifestyle being gangbanging. So this individual we see in real time was able to transcend that particular, that sentence, if you will, right? And not only was he able to transcend that sentence in his personal life, but he had made provisions for himself to say, look, I'm going to go back in that community and save others, right? So what's the definition of a savior? Somebody who does it for themselves, and now you're able to go outside and replicate that for other people. So you have a working model, right? Or you have enough influence on people that instead of sending them in the wrong direction, you could convince them to go in the right direction. And at a time in which, you know, everybody seems to be waiting on some savior to come out of the sky, or people are looking for direction, they identified this brother as being, right, someone who's going against the grain. In his peer group, there are not too many people that were willing to do what it is that he did with their influence. There are not too many people who are willing to take their own money and refinance, you know, or reinvest, should I say, in the hood. There are not too many people who are willing to put their lives on the line for the good of humanity, rather than to say, look, I'm doing this shit in service of evil. You know what I mean? I'm doing this shit in service of, you know, the lower energies or the lower forces that get so much good press on this planet. So the brother, he resonated and he struck a chord because of that, because of his sacrifice, right? In these biblical times when we're living and we're waiting on a savior, when we're looking for signs and things of that nature, here comes this brother, you know, unfortunately, who finds himself passing at the age of 33, and all of his things just lining up. The fact that, you know, he made transition in the spring equinox, you know, when we know the story, right? The astrological story of Jesus is actually being acted out in the cosmos. You know what I'm saying? His brother hit all of those particular chords. You feel me? And like I said, for whatever reason, just like the story of Jesus, Jesus wasn't seen until he made transition. You know what I'm saying? And then the people made, what do we have amongst us? And we lost. I want to get into worship mode. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing that happened with Malcolm. Same thing that happened with Martin. It's the same thing that happens with the great ones. You feel me?
I had a conversation with some spiritual brothers. I'm not going to talk about their denomination.
No problem.
They seemed like they had a problem with Malcolm being looked at as a prophet, or Jesus being looked at as a prophet, or
of course.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Felt like,
because whatever denomination they belong to, they're into their prophet primarily. So they prophet hating, right? they get prophet jealous, like, oh, 2 prophets can't fit in 1 car. It's like it's a passenger seat, and it's 2 seats in the back. It's more room for than just 1 prophet. You know what I'm saying? Like God don't send no more messengers. He just cut it off at your last one. So, you know, you got to deal with that with people. You feel me? But here's my thing. Messengers and prophets come to the downtrodden and the forgotten, right? Where the hell is the prophet that comes to these people and these children out here? Ain't none of them. Ain't no prophets coming. These children have been forgotten. They're downtrodden. You dig what I'm saying? And someone such as a Nipsey speaks their language. He comes from their culture. He walks on the same streets that they walk on. This is someone who they can relate to, who can reach them directly when everybody else has forgotten them. Understand? So yeah, that's why we identified him as such, because, you know, you can't forget people. The people need somebody. You know what I mean? They need somebody to talk to. And if you keep telling me that the street organizations are our warriors, then that means that they're the strongest amongst us. How you gonna forget your strength? You dig what I'm saying? So if they're the strongest amongst you, and this person is genuine enough of a character, I'm talking about since I know him from 07 to 08, he was communicating with Bloods. He always crossed the lines of what people would typically put you in a box and be like, oh, you're from the rolling 60s, you can only go here and go there. And it's bad enough he had physical injunctions on his movement, but that didn't stop him in his mind from saying, look, I'm gonna transcend this and go outside of my box. He literally lived inside of a box. You know what I'm saying? Because he couldn't perform in LA, couldn't get his radio played, he couldn't go to other neighborhoods. The police was this and the police was that. So this is somebody who really went against the construct of barriers and broke outside of that and was able to transcend and achieve greatness in 1 lifetime. So I'm just like, let's recognize the real when we see it. Let's recognize people that are great and acknowledge people's greatness. It's not taking nothing away from you. It's actually putting you in line for your greatness once you acknowledge the greatness of somebody else.
Beautiful, man. Another thing I want to talk about, I think you captured that well, man. What you think? Before talking that talk, Tyler Perry.